Good morning, all. Well, this morning I woke up to a beautiful rainy day. Well, I'm not really complaining because come summertime, we're going to be glad we had them. But we haven't been having a lot of them. Now, my project today is to do a little research. Normally, I wouldn't do a video on this because this is going to be aerial research. And every year I fly my claim and different rivers that I work, and I take videos of the rivers. That way I get a history of where the boulders are moving, what is changed from year to year. It really helps you locate areas to mine if you understand what's going on in the river. This video is about how I do that. Now the reason I'm making the video is nowadays with drones, anybody can fly the river. Even if you don't have a drone, you can hire somebody to come do it. You can have a friend come do it. The prices are way cheaper than a helicopter. And also you don't really even need a drone. If you have an area that you work that you got hills where you can get up above it and take a picture of the creek every year, you can do the same thing with a still picture, because basically what I do on the videos, I turn them into still pictures. Okay, well, let's jump into here so I can show you, give you an idea of how I do this. Okay, the first thing we're going to jump into is Google Maps. Now, I'm pretty sure everybody knows how to get onto Google Maps. And Google Maps, when you use the satellite imagery, is real good for giving you an overall view. And here's an example of a Google map. Now, the great thing about Google Maps is it gives you the overall view of the river. Problem with Google Maps is you don't know when this was taken. And there's sometimes where, like in here, where the river's shaded, so it's really hard to see. But it will give you a real good overall view of the river, so you know that the inside of the turns and such. It's also real good for finding ways down to the river. If there's a road up here, rather than hiking down through all this brush, you'll notice that this area over here is fairly open, so you can hike on in this way. And then it also keeps you from having to hike in and then hike a long ways down the river, because looking at the picture, you can see there's some bedrock in here, a little bit of bedrock in here. And if you want to get to the bedrock, you can come down here, and right here you'll hit bedrock. And then, this is the inside of a turn, so you can work this bank. So it's a very good overall tool to use on a new area. Okay, well, let's jump into the actual aerial footage. That way I can give you an idea of how I use it. Here we have a picture of the river in 2015. You can see we have two rocks here, a large boulder in the center of the river. There's two rocks over here. Now the boulders we're going to be paying attention to are these two here, this one and this one that are buried in the gravel bar, and this small rock here. Okay, now we're going to jump forward a year to 2016. Now you can see here's those two rocks that were buried in the gravel, and this small rock that the gravel used to be right here. That gravel basically came from there, went right across here, up to here, and all this gravel that was around this rock is gone. Now let's jump back real quick and look at that again. You can see all this gravel in here goes away. All this rock is completely buried, and this rock is mostly buried, almost up to that little rock. Okay, we jump forward again, 2016. See, all that gravel's gone. These rocks that were buried are now in the water. This small rock is way out from the gravel bar. Now we're going to jump forward to 2018. Here's our little rock. Here's the two rocks that were buried in the gravel. Our large double rocks down here that had gravel around them. Now you can see that the gravel is gone. All this gravel bar that was in here, that gravel bar used to run right across here. All that gravel's gone, and all this gravel in here is gone. So that gravel, basically looking at the way things worked, went right down this way. So you know that this area, this bedrock here, and if this is bedrock, this area here has processed all this gravel. All this gravel that was accumulated in here will come through here. So you know that if you work this area in here and all these cracks and crevices in that bedrock, there's a good chance that they're going to catch the gold that sat in this gravel. And then if you're able to get in the river and snipe, you have some bedrock down here, hopefully, that's not too deep, that used to be under a gravel bar. Now when you're researching a section of river, the only thing that you don't really pay a lot of attention to as far as what's changing is the general course of the river. I mean, when you come onto a river for the first time, you're going to look at the inside of the bends and all that. Well, once we've established a section of river, that's not going to change, not in our lifetime. But sections of bedrock that break off, the boulders moving, the gravel bars moving, the vegetation, all that plays a role in deciding where to look for gold. So not only do you want to watch for the rocks and gravel movement, you also want to pay attention to vegetation. If you have a section of a creek, I have a section of river, it's been quite a few years ago now, that was fairly wooded. I mean, it had trees that were 8, 12 inches growing right down in the gravel beds. We had one winter, it came in and took every single one of those trees out. It turned it into a giant gravel bed. Well, within 2 years, that gravel bed got real spotty to where it was exposing bedrock. And I was able to go in there and find some really nice gold because it hadn't been mined in a long time. And I know this because those trees were on there. So even the vegetation plays a role into where you want to look to do your prospecting. Okay, when we're talking about the vegetation, this isn't a real good example because this picture was taken in the summer of 2015 and this picture was taken in the winter of 2018. Okay, but let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, on this picture here, you can see you have a big boulder here. There's a bush, basically in the creek. There's a rock here. You have a big flat rock here, another big rock here, and there's a couple of pieces of vegetation here. Okay, now, when I go to 2018, here's our big rock, a round rock in the river, a long rock with the rock up against it. You can see here, it's not easy to see because there's no leaves on it, but you can see there's definitely vegetation right here. There's evidence of it right here, and it looks like one right there. Okay, let's go back to the summertime picture. Yeah, so you can see all this vegetation is still there. It's there, looks like there. So we know that this area right here, since 2015, hasn't changed at all. So the vegetation allows us to know that this is the same gravel that's been sitting there since 2015. Now there are other ways that you can use vegetation when you're looking for some gold. And I've explained it in some of my older videos, but when you're down on the creek and you're looking different areas to metal detector pan or whatever, and if there's vegetation on the creek bed and you got an old tree that's down there and it's just beat, it's laying over, it's got old wounds on it, and you can tell that thing's had a rough life, well, that tells you there's substantial flow right there. And then, you know, across the creek there may be a tree that's doing fine. It's got very little scars on it. It doesn't look like it's hardly ever been hit. Well, you know, that tree is out of the flow. And so there's no sense to looking for gold around that area, because you need some flow to bring that gold in. Now that tree that's all beat up, you know you got flow around it. Okay, well there's all kinds of different ways to use vegetation and to aid you into where you're looking. Now this is just a couple of the methods. It's raining. I got nothing better to do. So right now I'm going to get back to my research, but one thing I did want to mention is doing the research, what I've showed you here, that area where that gravel bar has moved out. I'm hopefully going to go down there with the high banker and do a little high banking in that area that I was talking about where we know that gravel's gone through. Just test out the system and see if this works. Problem is, right now I know that water is 15, 20 feet deep in there and just roaring through because we've had a lot of rain. But as soon as we get a week or two of no rain, things die down a bit, we're going to head down there with the high banker. Okay, well, I'm going to get back to my research, so if it does quit raining, I got a place to go. So right now, if you enjoyed the video and you're not a subscriber, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, hit the like button. And if you are a subscriber, I thank you for coming by. And right now, I'm going to get back to what I'm doing, so you guys have a wonderful day.